Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at version 2 of the DollyFly25 from sub250.com. The main difference is the version 1 was designed around the O3, and of course the version 2 is designed around the O4. It does look like you could mount an external HD camera, but there's no holes in this little area, so I believe that's just a design element. Another big change is instead of having a carbon fiber piece with some 3D printed protectors, this is all a lower bottom plastic ducted section. It does come with the same 1404 4500 kV motors. This is a 4S quad, and on those motors are HQ DT63 props. They're tri-bladed props. We have an external connector that would be for an LED light that would go in this tract along the prop protection. We do have the option to get this with a GPS that does have not only the GPS in it, but it also has our Express LRL's T style mount. And as you can see there, we have a USB-C connection to get down to our flight controller. And the camera assembly does have some vibration dampening built into it. We've got the port available on the O4 at the top, as well as the bind and the SD card slot on the bottom. It weighs 183.5 grams. I did all my flying on these style of batteries, G&B 650 4S, Sub 250 720, which is probably made by G&B 4S, and an 850. With the 850, it weighs 252.07 grams. And in the category of things that make you go, with the 720, it weighs 251.9 grams. Yeah, these batteries are virtually identical, but when it comes to flight time, there is a difference. And with the 650, it weighs 252.98 grams. I think to get under 250 grams, you're either going to need to go to a smaller battery, like a 550 or a 600, if you can find one of those, or you're going to have to drop down without GPS. The carbon fiber plate is 2 millimeters thick, and motor post to motor post, I'm getting just about 119 millimeters. It does come with an extra set of props, an extra black canopy. It does come with a lighting kit. You can see the connector right there. An extra battery strap. This looks like an ND filter. Extra set of vibration dampening. There are two very thin battery mats in there, but I did not use them. As you can see, mine in here is naked. And we also get a number of different repair screws if they were to fall out or get damaged. And a wiring map on the flight controller slash ESC, which is the Red Fox A3. That is an F722 35 amp all-in-one flight controller. And last but not least, you get 2 sheets of stickers. As I get ready to start this flight, the weather data, only 66 degrees, got a cool spell that hit us. Not full bright sunny, it's a little bit overcast, and only 3 miles an hour on the wind. I do have another flight that I'll show you a sample of as well that is 9 to 20 miles an hour. We're starting off in our goggle or DVR view, so this is footage recorded on the goggles. No stabilization. When you see the OSD elements go away, that means we're looking at the video footage recorded directly on the O4, and that does have Rocksteady enabled, so it'll smooth things out quite a bit. It also shrinks the field of view a little bit in order to do its Rocksteady mechanisms. But as you can tell, when the winds are this low, it's going to be pretty smooth flight. And this is kind of what you're looking for if you're looking for cruising sort of flight. I do think this design is actually being bought far more than our other designs, because we keep seeing for years now iterations of these coming out more quickly than their unprop protected brethren. So I'm suspecting many of you are buying these for general purpose. You just like to fly them around, like to have the prop protection, with the idea that if you were to happen upon somebody, there's an element of safety, I'm guessing. Also, it might just be the prevalence of this design around that is kind of pushing more and more people to buy these, or maybe it's the DJI effect in that DJI, most of their quads have some sort of prop protection, or at least recently have had a lot of prop protection on them, and so that has kind of pushed people towards looking for that design. But as I normally do, I not only fly them slowly, as they seem to be designed around, but I fly them more aggressively, and we'll see that as well. And even in this one, I'm going to fly it in the house, because it's not horrible noisy. It's still noisy, don't get it twisted, but it's not horrible. And for a quad of this style, it's not nearly as loud as many that I've had. So I went ahead and flew it inside. So we'll take a look at all those different flights. The only full flight will be the faster flight, because by nature, I'll be burning through that battery a little bit quicker than I would be otherwise. Speaking of flight times, as we are in the gyro stabilized Rocksteady view of our VTX recording on the O4, on the 850, I got about 7 minutes across 3 different batteries. On the 720, Whether you use the sub 250 version or not, I did use all sub 250s. Like I said in the video, I think the sub 250 batteries are actually manufactured by G&V. I got 5 minutes and 40 seconds on the 650 G&V with the flower print on it. That's kind of an orangish sort of label on that one. I got 5 minutes and 20 seconds on that. And in the faster flight, I used the 650 G&V with the flower print on it. So we'll be seeing that one up shortly. But I didn't find in the slow sort of cruisy flight that it had any sort of deficiencies that I thought I needed to bring out in the video. It flies normally, it tracks like you would expect. I didn't have any excess vibrations or anything of that nature. When we get into the 9 to 20 mile an hour, I think that one's interesting in that you'll see the effect of wind because the gusts come up and you can tell the gusts come up. So if you're looking to fly these sorts of things and you're wanting rock steady still footage, you know, when the winds get above, say, 15 to 16 miles an hour, that's going to be tough to come by, and that's not necessarily specific in this quad, but we see that a lot in this sort of design, that the wind, because it has more to blow against in the prop protection, does have a greater impact. But we've switched back over to our DVR/goggle view. Let's jump into that windier sample here. As you can tell, I've got some satellites up there. I don't think I drew that out in the beginning, but there was also in the top right hand where you see the satellites, it's kind of bounce around between 6 and 7. You also see the kilometers per hour, which is the speed, and I can't remember. I apologize. I cannot remember what the number above the satellites is. It's kind of bouncing around in the 70s there. I can't remember what that is. And then I've got the throttle value in the top left. And then we're cruising around again, and we're starting in the DVR view, of course, as well. You will see that it bounces around as we hit some of those winds. You can see the leaves on the trees and the branches on the trees are kind of moving around, and it's not, you know, terrible, but we do have some wind. But you can definitely tell when it gets up above 20. And oh yeah, it was warm out. I had been doing some pool cleaning that was 80 degrees. Like I said in the slower video that sample I played before this. This is 9 to 20 miles an hour, and hopefully with the flight audio, which is recorded separately and then brought into the video, you could tell when those wind gusts come up, and you can kind of look at the footage to see that impact, because there is an impact, especially when it comes up and gets up into the 20 miles an hour zone. Even when you're looking at it through the rock steady view, as we've now switched over to, you can see a little bit. It's not dead, solid, stable footage when we get those wind gusts that come up, but when it's lower, so in that 9 mile an hour range, as you can tell, it is very, very, very stable. So that's good. Gives you at least, very least, an idea of what to expect. Not only at this, but most of them would follow suit. There are huge differences from one to another, and that's one of the things that I always have troubles with when it comes to people asking me to compare these one versus another. It's really rough for me to compare them. You know, I can go back and watch the videos, but really when it comes down to it, I've got to go out and fly them again. And even then, I wouldn't necessarily be able to recommend one over another. So you've got to look at, one, the weight is being under 250 grams important to you. With this one, I think if you go without the GPS option, you will get under 250 grams. But if you go with the GPS option, you're going to have to use a smaller battery and therefore have a little less flight time. So that's something that you need to look at to compare one versus another, whether it's this one or something else. Also, you probably want to look at the durability side. I would have said their last one would probably be more durable because of the carbon fiber, but we're moving away from that carbon fiber prop protection. That was one of the last iterations that we saw. That's something else to look at. You can look at battery mounting, you can look at camera position, you can also flight times, depending upon if that's one of the things that you want to compare. Flight times is a good thing to look at as well. Those are some comparables outside of just the designs themselves and which one is better. It's going to be really hard for me to tell you which one is better, especially weeks and weeks and weeks after I've flown it, even if I still have it. But let's move on to my more favorite sort of flight style, faster sort of flight style. I did not mark the weather down on this particular day. I don't have it embedded here or nothing. Holy catches. Hold on, let me see if I can look that up real quick. I have looked up the weather information, 68 degrees, and the wind is 10 miles an hour. Shortly after this flight session, the winds go way up to 16 miles an hour. So There probably are some gusts in there because I'm right at the cusp of the time when that wind started to increase a little bit. One of the things to look for in this style of quad, I'm trying to do a little bit of a comparison, not only for this one, but if you happen to find version 1 out on the market and you want to compare it version 2, one of the things that I always do, especially in the faster flight, is when I do a punch up, like usually around the chimney, and then as I get nose down and you try to get that experience of kind of drifting away from the earth, almost like zero gravity. Sometimes in these quads, they'll have a little wobble or shake on the yaw axis side to side as you nose over. So that's something to look forward to. I think that that happens from time to time on these, and if you don't see that, then it usually means the tune is a little bit better. It's not huge, and especially depending upon how you plan to fly them, it might not matter at all. But that's one of the things that I can look forward and point you towards when it comes down to these types of quads, and something to look for in the tune deficiency. Of course, if you see bounce back, if you see some other sorts of wobbles, you see prop wash excessively, then those are all kind of more obvious things. But that punch up to the chimney and then nose down when it wobbles on the x-axis or y-axis, that's something to look for. We do see that in quite a few of the. Of course, you can. I've done it once before on a Gepard C1. I think it was a 3-incher, and we turned up. Brandon Beans, I think, had left a comment and turned up the thrust linearization. I think I turned it up to 100%, and that either took out that y-axis wobble, the yaw axis wobble, or it got it so low that I couldn't really see it anymore. So, but my understanding of PID tuning is that you shouldn't necessarily need to do it that way. That is a way you can do it, but if you have a good solid PID tune, you wouldn't necessarily need to do it. That's my understanding. So something for all of you that are comparing these out there to look for, specifically in the faster sorts of flight. Even if you don't want to, or you plan to fly it like that, and you want to make just any sort of nitty-gritty comparison from one of these in this design air arena to another, that's something I can find. But I thought this one, when it came to the yaw axis, did well. I should note that they did send out a second PID tune after I had this about a week, so that made me start all my flying over again, which is not a big deal. I'm glad they improved the PID tune a little bit. That gives me a little bit more confidence that they're continuing to improve their product along the line. But it was a restart moment. There we go. You can see we've landed, and we got 3 minutes of flight. Battery is in good shape on that 650 milliamp. So we're going to start our inside sample. So you might want to turn your volume down, and then we'll get that started, and you can ease that back up so that you can hear it. It'll only be a sample. We'll play it about a minute. Nothing terribly exciting, but I wanted you to be able to hear it inside too. So I wanted to let a few seconds of that indoor sample play out while we're close up here. Obviously, this is something that I don't normally do with this size, but I think, when you're in the 2-inch to 2.5-inch, especially if you're looking at shooting professionally, this might be a consideration as I bounce it off that first step of the floor to kind of regain my composure there. This has a happening later in the video, which I don't think we'll get to because, again, we're going to look at about a minute sample of this. There's a tray between those two lamps on the couch upstairs, and it's just a tin tray. It's decorative for Halloween purposes. I fly over that, and of course it gets blown off its little stand and hits the hardwood floors and makes a terrible racket. But that was something that I thought was comical outside of bouncing it off that step. As I got ready to go down the stairs, I nosed down a little bit early there. I'm much too used to flying whoops as I bounce it off that chair now. When you're flying this slow and there's just no carry around objects as you turn, that's something that I struggle with. I'm used to flying my whoops. It's kind of my daily thing at nighttime. And they have even, an 18 or 20 gram whoop has got more carry when you're flying it fast than something like this when you're flying it at this pace. It's just it's a flight difference, one that I am not very good at, as much as I try to show you guys what it should look like in a what should I say, in the hands of someone who can handle it, maybe is the best way to describe it. But down here in the basement, you probably can't hear it as well. But that was something that I remembered when I was flying it was, you know, this one isn't nearly as noisy as we've seen for something that's 4S, prop protection with 2.5-inch props. So I thought flying it inside might give you another sample of if you're planning to use this in a shoot sort of scenario of how much noise it will create, especially if you have animals or people around it and how that might impact them. So I wanted to share that with you as well. So with the way they've designed this prop protection, you actually have some camera protection if you were to be, you know, going real low. Because remember, the battery's going to be up top. So if you're going real low along the ground, it will protect your camera to some degree down here. Of course, if you have a horizontal pole or branch, you know, it can get right in there. You've got no protection really in all cases of O4 because they always have to stick out just a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to get part of your quad in your view, which I don't think too many people like. A couple other design elements I do want to draw out is they use these aluminum pieces to secure the prop protection to the carbon fiber. Here on the sides, you can see those. Those are actually kind of nice. They have some anodization going on the edges of the aluminum there. And then in the front and the back, they have standoffs. You can see the standoffs up here. Back here, it's covered up by the mount that is for the GPS and the Express LRS antenna. But we do have those mounts, and it's pretty solid. You know, when it comes to trying to twist it in that manner, of course, it's going to twist to a degree in this manner. But overall, it's still pretty solid. It's really only twisting out here on the outside edges. I don't really feel it twisting in this area. This design also, I can appreciate that because if you saw my video on the waterproof quad, that one got challenging to remove the footage from. So when I moved to this and doing this review, I was like, oh, it's so nice. You know, everything's right here for me. I don't have to get my screwdrivers out, so to speak. Do take note about the antennas. When I first started flying this, I did not get the antennas seated properly. They should go into this little area down here by my thumb, just a couple of millimeters. And I was really curious about that because it kept falling out. You know, when I just tapped these things, the antennas would then pop down. But what I found I had to do is just kind of turn it as I was pushing it forward and applying some pressure to where it would go up, and then it would clip in real nicely. And as you can see, you know, I'm touching these things. Previously, they were falling out, and now they don't. So the key to making sure these are mounted in the way that they're designed to be mounted is to make sure that they get up in this front portion, and then they will clip in a lot better. Something to you know, take note of, something that I learned that I can bring to the video. Obviously, if you add the LED light, your weight is going to go up ever so slightly. So if you're trying to get under the 250 grams and you want the LED lights and the GPS, you're going to have to go to a smaller battery. That's there. There's no way around that if you want all those features. This GPS, as far as its performance goes, you should have seen it on there. It got satellites pretty quickly, and it day over day, it would get the satellites pretty quickly, so you wouldn't have to sit out there very long. I've talked about it in other videos. It's some GPSs that seem to be the same for whatever reason. Maybe it's the proximity to these antennas for the O4. They just don't get their satellites as quickly. This one got them within, you know, a minute or so, maybe even less a few occasions. So I don't think that's much of a concern in this particular format with the GPS being so far away. I think is why that was working better, because we're using, I think, which are probably the same M10 GPSs for the most part from quad to quad when they come in this size. At this time, this is not live, so I don't have a price for you, but if the previous iteration is any sort of comparison, somewhere around $430 with the O4 with the GPS. But of course, you want to look at all the different options that they have available if you're at all interested in this particular quad, or really any quad. You always want to look at the options because sometimes the manufacturers will have all sorts of different options. You select extra arms, batteries, battery straps, what have you. There can be a lot of options that when you just visit the site that they're already selected, so it can make the price look much greater than it actually is once you start eliminate some of those options. But this, I'll have a link to this down in the video description when it becomes available. Hopefully same about time you're seeing this if you're interested. If you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise about the Sub 250 DollyFly25 V2, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.